No, ma'am, right now it is not. Okay. So, a very good afternoon to one and all who has connected in this online meeting to attend the second session or post-lunch session of this short-term training program on biotechnology and its application in tribal agriculture areas, which is sponsored by All India Council for Technical Education and organized by Ballarpur Institute of Technology, Ballarpur. I welcome you all to attend this session, and our honorable resource person for this session, Dr. Radhika Markar Madam, has already joined us. We would like to take this opportunity to introduce her to all of you. Dr. Radhika Markar Madam is a postdoctoral fellow at Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai, which is a very renowned institute. She was earlier a visiting research fellow at the University of Manchester, UK. This opportunity was awarded to her under Professor Dame Nancy Rothwell Dhirubhai Ambani Lifetime Achievement Award Fund of ICT Mumbai. She has presented around 10 papers in international conferences. She jointly holds a patent with her research guide Padma Shri Professor G.D. Yadav sir. Her expertise is in green technology, biotechnology, heterogeneous catalysis, cascade engineered catalytic reactions, multifunctional catalyst synthesis and characterization, carbon dioxide conversion, process innovation, feasibility studies, analytical studies on GC, HPLC, TLC, etc. To her credit, she has availed senior research fellowship under UGC SAP for meritorious students for PhD Green Biotechnology from July 2016 to January 2019. Also, she has availed junior research fellowship under UGC SAP for meritorious students in PhD Green Technology from June 2014 to July 2016. Furthermore, she has been awarded UGC SAP PG fellowship for meritorious students in MTech in Green Technology from June 2012 to July 2014. Well, we are really glad to welcome you once again, Dr. Radhika Markar, to be our resource person in this third batch of this short-term training program. We have already witnessed that the knowledge shared by you in batch 1 and batch 2 was appreciated a lot by all the participants. And we welcome you to address our participants and attendees for this third batch as well. And may I now request you to please start the session now.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your warm welcome. Today, I'm going to talk about synthesis of biofertilizer and biopesticides from agricultural waste using biotechnological tools. This is going to be a content of my presentation, introduction, current scenario of Indian agriculture, current challenges with respect to agricultural waste, biofertilizers, production of biofertilizers and biopesticides, and some challenges and opportunities. So, starting with the introduction, all we have known or all we have very well known with the fact that India is an agricultural country. Agriculture is the only section or only sector which contributes almost 16% of GDP and the largest sector for providing employment to the Indian youth. So, agricultural is the primary source for livelihood of about 58% of India's population. Indian food market, which is the grocery market, it is the world's sixth largest in number, and retail contributing 70% of the sales. So let's see some of the facts regarding the Indian agriculture. Total geographical area is India having 328 million hectares, from which net area sown, which is 142 million hectares, and out of which gross cropped area is 190.8 million hectares. India is having a huge amount of biodiversity. Majorly four are hotspots like Himalayas. We are having Western Ghats, Indo-Burma region, and Sudaland. All are contributing almost 46,000 species of plants and more than 86,000 species of animals. So this is the huge amount of biodiversity with respect to plants and animals is India is acknowledged. India is representing largest producer of world with pulses and tea, and second largest producer for fruits, vegetables, wheat, rice, groundnut, and sugarcane. We will see some of the investment carried out by Indian government in last 2 years, and some of the major companies which are related to food and agricultural sector. In March 2020, the oldest and large-scale fertilizer manufacturing company of the India has crossed 1 million production and sales mark. Nestle India will invest 700 crore. It is almost 116 US dollar million in construction of their ninth factory in the Gujarat. November 2019, Haldiram entered into an agreement for Amazon's global selling program to e-tail its delicacies into the United States. Whereas in November 2019, Coca-Cola has launched a new product called as Rani Float, which is a fruit juice to step out from its trademark fizzy drinks. Actually, Rani Float, it is a fruit juice made from the already real fruit juices carried out from the Indian farms, and it is a blend of real fruit juices with the real pieces of the fruits. Two diagnostic kits were developed by Indian Council of Agricultural Research and Indian Veterinary Research Institute and the Japanese encephalitis IgM ELISA. They were launched in October 2019. And investment worth of 8,500 crore, almost 1.19 billion US dollar, have been announced by India into the ethanol production from the biomass. So besides all these of huge investment carried out by different companies and different companies and Indian government, still there is a decline in the crop productivity from the India. So we will see what are the major causes for such declining into the crop productivity. Basically, there are three factors: human factor, technical factor, and institutional factor. In human factor, there are 2 points, like social atmosphere, means social climate, which includes customs and traditions. Indian farmer is actually not that much of educated, and they are having a lack of knowledge with respect to latest technologies which are applied for the growth of new harvesting. And second point is pressure of population on the land, like because of the increasing heavy population, they are pressurizing the agricultural sector to produce more and more healthy and nutritious food crops. So these are the two factors which are considered into the human factor. Technical factors are like traditional methods of cultivation, then old implements which are carried out from traditions, they are applying into the horticulture, insufficient irrigation facilities, problems of soils like soil irrigation, depletion of nutrients from the soil, then problems related to pest and diseases of the crops, then feeble cattle, lack of high yielding variety seeds which are right now available into the market, but farmers are not approaching to them, then improper marketing technology. These are all technical factors. And in institutional factors, like small sizing of farms, means fragmentation of the land within the siblings. Because of the fragmentation, a lesser space is getting available, which puts some limitations to carry out new technologies for the harvesting. And second is a defective and land tenure system, means zamindari paddhat. These are some of the factors which are affecting to reduce the crop yield into the India. Besides these all factors, there are some certain factors like chemical fertilizers, imbalanced and indiscriminate use of chemical factors. Over the time of utilization of these chemical factors, we are now coming to know that there are disadvantages for these chemical factors. Then occurrence of multi-nutrients deficiency and major nutrient deficiency, like major nutrients nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, and along with major nutrients multi-nutrient deficiency like zinc, boron, sulfur. These are some of the nutrients which are required for the excellent plant growth. Then Indian agriculture is actually rain dependent. Then inadequate irrigation facilities, continuous fragmentation of the land, which is unfavorable for adoption of new technology for the farming, we have already discussed, and they lead to stagnation in the food grains production in India. So these are certain factors which are affecting the crop productivity overall into the India. Then nutrient deficiency in soil. Besides the major nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus and potassium, there are some multi-nutrients like sulfur, zinc, calcium. They are also required for the crops to get into the excellent growth for this plant. They should be available into the proper quantity into the soil for growth. Other nutrients besides those, iron, boron, they are also required in small quantities, but their deficiency significantly impacts the plant growth and their life. Micronutrients like zinc, boron, iron, sulfur, they are continuously means their deficiency is continuously increasing into the Indian soil. There is a research carried out in 2017 which have shown that the percentage of deficiency of each nutrients. We'll see into the next slide. Innumerable experiments proved that there is a significant increase in yield by application of such small micronutrients. Though the quantity required of such micronutrients is in very small quantity, but they are having large impact over the growth of this plant. This is the research carried out in 2017 by some researchers. They are having, they have shown into the graph like zinc is having 36.5% of deficiency into the Indian soil. Iron was showing 12.8% of deficiency, manganese 7.1, copper 4.2, and boron 23.2. Whereas when we mix these major and micronutrients in get together, so their combined deficiency is sulfur and zinc are showing 9.9%, zinc and boron shows 8.3%, and likewise. So this is the deficiency data carried out in 2017 by some researchers. We have seen till now the deficiency caused by nutrients and how it hampers the crop productivity. So advanced technology with the help of biotechnology, with the help of genetic engineering, new two tools are getting applied largely right now into the market, like cloning of superior genotype. This is related to genetic engineering or called as genetically modified crops or genetically modified plants. And second is use of biofertilizers and biopesticides. Genetically modified crops, it actually involves the changing the genetic makeup of plants by transferring DNA from one plant to another plant with the help of two methods are very famous, physical method and using the bacteria called as Agrobacterium tumefaciens. So these are the two methods applied into the genetic engineering or GMOs. We can call it as a GMOs. But genetically modified crops are not readily or not easily accepted by public domain. So there are having their own advantages and disadvantages, but because of lack of awareness, these are not getting readily acceptable. So as a solution or as an alternative, we can look at towards the biofertilizers and biopesticides to get the good amount of crop productivity. Then the major problem faced by the India, it is the agricultural waste, or called as current challenges is the agricultural waste. Agricultural wastage is India's #1 problem. India actually ranks 103rd out of 119 countries in 2018 surveys. That survey was carried out by Global Hunger Index, which is a worldwide study that measures and tracks the hunger at global level, at regional level, and some national levels. So that survey was carried out in 2018, and it was found that in Hunger Index, India ranks 103rd out of 119 countries. The key reason for this is actually agricultural food wastage. 194 million Indians go hungry every day according to the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization or FAO. This organization attributes this problem mainly to the massive food wastage carried out. Almost 14 billion US dollar of food is going wasted in India every year. And in fact, 40% of food produced in India is getting wasted before it reaches to the consumer. So huge amount of food wastage is getting generated in India. Some of the facts we can see, like India is short by 10 million tons of cold storage capacity, and due to which almost 30% of agricultural waste is getting go into the west every year because of the lack of storage capacity. More than 20% of produce from the fields is getting lost to the is getting wasted because of the poor technology in the post harvesting facilities and lack of cold chain infrastructure. 10% of food grain that India produces annually is eaten by the rodents. Only 7% of food is getting processed into the India, whereas the developed countries like UK and USA, they are processing almost 65% of their food. So we can see a huge amount of gap is there in processing of the food, like 7%, and where is the 65%? Even a developing country like Philippines, they are processing 45% of their food. So we are lagging a lot in technology for the food harvesting process. India is world's second largest in the fruit and vegetable producer that encounters a waste closest to the 25% worth of produced. So these are some of the figures related to the food wastage or agricultural waste. In Asia alone generates 4.4 billion tons of solid waste and municipal solid waste, which comprises 790 million tons of, uh, which is about 48 million ton that are generated into the India only, which is comprises 6% of total in comparison with the Asian countries. It was predicted that by the year 2047, the municipal solid waste generated into the India is expected to reach 300 million tons. So we can see how the food wastage is growing into the India. So we have to government has to give the attention to such kind of wastage. So these are the current challenges. We can see the declining crop productivity and poor agricultural waste management. We can see here. One of the biggest issue facing the agricultural sector in India is the low yield or declined crop productivity. India's farming yield 30 to 40% is lower than that of the developed nation. Average farm size and poor infrastructure, low use of new farming technologies and the best farming techniques. So these are some of the reasons which are related to the lowering of the crop productivity. So we can look at the future aspect, or we can look at the solution to the biofertilizers and biopesticides as a new hope. But we can say, why not chemical factors or chemical fertilizers? Whenever fertilizers they came into the market, the Indian farmers were very happy because of the sudden and quick increase into the crop productivity. But over the use, as the farmers are getting utilized for the chemical fertilizers, they are coming to know that there are certain disadvantages caused by the chemical fertilizers. Some of the chemical fertilizers are very harmful for the friendly insects, which are very friendly for the farmings, but they are getting killed or getting destroyed by use of chemical fertilizers. Also, the fertilizers are getting retained into the soil, so they are means the soil health, we can say, it is decreasing. So these are some of the disadvantages we have come to know. After the introduction of chemical fertilizers into the last century, farmers were very happy because of the sudden increase into the crop productivity. But chemical fertilizers slowly started displaying their side effects, such as leaching out, polluting water basins, destroying microorganisms which are friendly to the farmers, making crops more susceptible to the attack of disease, reducing the soil fertility, and thus causing irreparable damage to the overall system. So these are some of the disadvantages caused by the chemical fertilizers. There is another term we have all known, like organic farming. This organic farming does not involve the application of chemical fertilizers. It is actually basic is the natural things. So agricultural land gets impoverished or poor. They are getting poor in terms of cultivation if not supplemented properly with the nutrients. Two factors they are getting into consider, like food quality and safety. These are the two important factors that have gained ever increasing attention in general consumers. So conventionally grown foods are having immense adverse health effect because of the higher pesticide residues into the crops, and more nitrate, heavy metals, hormones, antibiotic residues. These are all present into the chemically fertilized farming. So moreover, conventionally grown foods, these are less nutritious and contains lesser amount of protective antioxidants. So in the quest for safer food and healthy food, the demand for organically grown food has increased, because we can see the demand has been increased during the last decade due to their probable health benefits and food safety concerns. So basically, organic food production is defined as the cultivation without the application of chemical fertilizers and synthetic pesticides or genetically modified organisms, growth hormones, and antibiotics. Without the use of all these things, organic farming can be carried out. To supplement the soil nutrient content under the conventional farming system, we need to apply high dose of agrochemicals, which can deplete into the ecosystem and can pollute. Therefore, in order to make agricultural sustainable, it is necessary to implement the balanced and responsible use of organic agriculture. There are two main important principles which are organic farming is based on. The soil health and biodiversity is getting developed to sustain the plant growth in longer terms. So these are the two principles which are based, organic farming is based on that two principles. So we will start with the biofertilizers. This was all the introduction regarding the agricultural waste basic problems India is now facing in the, and how we can find out the solutions by using the biotechnology and by using the new concepts like genetic engineering. In biofertilizers, these can be defined as a live microbial preparation. When applied to the seed, root, or soil, they colonizes the rhizosphere or the interior of the plant and promotes the growth by releasing growth promoting substances and by increasing the availability of primary nutrients, which are nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Some of the micronutrients, they can be also carried out with the help of biofertilizers. So these biofertilizers are organic in nature and they possesses the secondary metabolites which are produced from the microbial origin or called as microorganism itself. They can be utilized as a biofertilizers. For the production of biofertilizers, first microorganisms, they are getting isolated from soil, water, air, whatever may be the source of their origin, or from the rhizosphere, which are they further processed to a concentrated form for use into the field. They help in building the soil microflora and therefore it improves the soil health. Use of biofertilizer is recommended for improving the soil fertility in organic farming. These are also called as microbial inoculants because they majorly contains the secondary metabolites from the microbial origin, or itself the microorganism itself, they can be used as a biofertilizers. For example, rhizofertilizers, azofertilizers, azospirillum fertilizers, azolla fertilizers, these are some of the examples. Why biofertilizers? We can see some of the advantages. They are environmental friendly. They do not pose any danger to the environment. They are these biofertilizers can replace the demand of chemical fertilizers almost 25 to 30%. These 25 to 30% of chemical fertilizer application can be cut off or can be reduced by application of biofertilizers. Biofertilizers are based on the nutrients, so they can improve the nitrogen fixation capacity of oil, they can improve the potassium uptake, they can improve the phosphorus uptake. So these are dependent upon the different micronutrients and major nutrients according to source. They leads to increasing into the productivity. These are some of the advantages we can see with respect to biofertilizers. Then these biofertilizers can be used to maintain microbial flora into the soil. They can enhance the crop production. These can be used to suppress the soil-borne pathogens, diseases like diseases into the crops because of the pathogens. They improve the soil health. They can supply the mixture of nutrients in major and micronutrients to the soil, and they can be used to maintenance of symbiotic relationship. So all these are uses of biofertilizers, and they are very eco-friendly. Let us see some of the market scenario for the biofertilizers. Currently, biofertilizers they can be used as a supplement to the chemical fertilizers. We have seen almost 25 to 30% of chemical fertilizer demand can be replenished by using biofertilizers. As 25% of requirement for chemical fertilizer can be replaced by biofertilizer, there is a huge gap between the demand of biofertilizer and production of biofertilizers. We can see the biofertilizer demand can be estimated to be 27.3 lakh megaton. For achieving the target for the production of 321 million tons of food grain. For producing 321 million tons of food grain by 2020, there is a demand of biofertilizer 27.3 lakh metric ton. But currently, the production capacity of India is only 0.86 lakh of metric ton. So we can see the huge gap is there between the demand and the production capacity. So we have a huge scope for the production of these biofertilizer. There are these overall the categories of the biofertilizer or categories and different types of biofertilizers. Majorly blue-green algae and rhizobium, these are the famous two. But apart from these two, based on the nutrients, they are nitrogen fixer. In nitrogen fixer, bacteria and blue-green can be utilized. In bacteria, there are rhizobium, azotobacter, mycobacterium, azospirillum, and bacillus. In blue-green algae, Anabaena, Nostac, Polypothris, Anabaenopsis. These can be used in blue-green algae section. Then second is phosphate solubilizing microbes. Then there is a sulfur solubilizing microbe. Then plant growth promoting rhizobacteria. Whereas fungi can be used as biofertilizers. There are two types: root endophytic fungi and plant growth promoting fungi. Then there are a fern apart from fungi and bacteria. In fern, Azolla is very famous. In between, Azolla folliculoides and Azolla rubra. These are two utilized in Azolla form. Then other mineral utilization microorganism. This is the overall general category of the biofertilizers right now is available. Mostly used are Azospirillum, Rhizobium, Phosphobacteria, and Azotobacter. These are utilized for different purposes depending upon which nutrient you want to provide to the plant. Some of the examples we can see, there are groups like depending upon nutrients like nitrogen fixing biofertilizer, phosphate solubilizing biofertilizers, potassium mobilizing biofertilizers. These three are the major nutrients required for the excellent plant growth. Free living nitrogen fixing biofertilizers, these are the example like Azotobacter, Clostridium, Klebsiella, Nostac. In symbiotic, Rhizobium is there, Anabaena is there, Azolla is there. Whereas associative symbiotic group possesses Azospirillum. In phosphate solubilizing biofertilizers, there are two groups, bacteria and fungi can be used. In bacteria, Bacillus, Megatherium var phosphaticum, Bacillus subtilis, these are some of the examples. And in fungi, penicillin and aspergillus. Likewise, in potassium mobilizing biofertilizers, there are four groups: arbuscular mycorrhiza, ectomycorrhiza, ericoid mycorrhiza, and orchid mycorrhiza. Then there is these three are major nutrients. For micronutrients, silicate and zinc solubilizers, these are Bacillus species can be used. And in plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, Pseudomonas, whereas Pseudomonas fluorescens, this is the species used into this group. So these are some of the examples of biofertilizers. Then major categories of biofertilizers, they are into two categories: nitrogen fixing and phosphate solubilizing. These are the major limiting nutrients, we can say, for the plant growth. Nitrogen fixing biofertilizers, they help to correct the nitrogen level into the soil. Actually, the nitrogen is a limiting factor for the plant growth, because plant needs a certain amount of nitrogen from the soil to live their life. For example, rhizobia, they are used for the legume crops, and azotobacter or azospirillum for non-legume crops. Azotobacter for sugarcane and blue-green algae and some azolla, they can be used for the rice paddies. So these are the example under nitrogen fixing bacteria. What they do, they fixes the atmospheric nitrogen into the form which is readily or which is easily available for the plants to take up. So these includes rhizobium, azotobacter, azospirillum, some of the blue-green algae and azolla. These are the examples we have seen. While rhizobium requires the symbiotic association with the root nodules of the leguminous plant to fix the nitrogen, and others can fix the nitrogen independently. Then second category is phosphate solubilizing microorganisms, or they are also called as PSM. What they do, they secrete some of the organic acids like indole acetic acid, we can say, which enhances the uptake of phosphorus from the soil by plants by dissolving the rock phosphate and tricalcium phosphate. So in soil, the phosphate is present into the form of rock phosphate, or they can call as tricalcium phosphate. So the organic acids which are released from the phosphate solubilizing microorganism, they enhances the dissolving phosphate from these two forms into readily available form. So how they help, in this way they help for uptake of phosphate by the plants. These PSMs are particularly valuable as they are not crop specific and they can benefit all the kind of phosphates. Phosphatica is used for all the crops with rhizobium, azotobacter, azospirillum and acetobacter. These are some of the example. Then next, these are a few types of biofertilizers based on the nutrients, like nitrogen fixing biofertilizer, phosphate solubilizing biofertilizer, phosphate mobilizing biofertilizer, zinc solubilizing biofertilizers, plant growth promoting rhizobacteria, potassium solubilizing biofertilizers, VAM or vesicular arbuscular endomycorrhiza biofertilizers. These are some of the famous types of biofertilizers right now available. We'll first see first example, nitrogen solubilizing biofertilizers. What they do, rhizobium is a nitrogen fixing biofertilizer. Rhizobium species is actually used. It is the symbiotic nitrogen fixer which assimilates the atmospheric nitrogen and fixes this nitrogen into the root nodule formed on the leguminous plants. Next, these bacteria infect the roots of leguminous plant, leading to the formation of lumps and nodules. Into the nodules, these bacteria are present, or the present bacteria into the nodules, they are called as bacteroids. These bacteria produces the enzyme called as nitrogenase. This enzyme helps to supply a constant source of reduced nitrogen to the host plant where they are living. Means the leguminous plant, over the roots of leguminous plant, they are living and they are fixing the atmospheric nitrogen with the help of nitrogenase enzymes. So these biopromoter or rhizobium is available as a carrier based powder formulation and liquid formulation. Rhizobium based biofertilizer which is used for nitrogen fixing, they are in the market, they are right now available into the two forms, like powder form and liquid form. This is applicable for certain plants, like this is suitable for groundnut, black gram, green gram, red gram, cowpea, Bengal gram, mustard, soya bean, French bean, custard bean, lab. So these are some of the examples where Rhizobium species is more suitable for nitrogen fixing. This is the sticking plate, we can see petri dish, where rhizobium is growing into the mannitol agar, yeast extract mannitol agar. Rhizofertilizers contain different species belonging to rhizobium species. They are gram-negative motile rods, aerobic in nature, and they are present into the soil. They forms after infecting to the roots of the leguminous plant. They forms the root nodules. These root nodules are basically into the pink color. The pink color is because of the leg hemoglobin protein. The leg hemoglobin protein is synthesized by the host plant within the cytoplasm of these cells. They are located into the nitrogen fixing zone of nodules. The species, the nodules is a special organ of leguminous plant that contains the nitrogen fixing bacteria. Thus, the leg hemoglobin has a high affinity for the oxygen and keeps the oxygen concentration in an optimal range or in the optimum range to protect the nitrogenous enzyme from the oxygen demand and to supply the bacterial respiration. So basically, leg hemoglobin is having the high affinity for the oxygen, which helps to carry out the bacterial respiration. The nitrogenase enzyme is contained into the nodule and transforms the nitrogen into the ammonia. The ammonia is the very easily readable, accessible form for the plants to take up. In next figure, we can see that this is a pea plant. In case of pea or Pisum sativum plant, the bacteria involved is the transformation is Rhizobium leguminosa, legumina rosum. So this is the bacteria is producing the root nodules. We can see these are pink in color because of the leg hemoglobin protein. So these are the root nodules where bacteroids are present inside them, which secretes the nitrogenase enzyme, and this enzyme helps to take up the nitrogen from the atmosphere, and they are converting into the ammonia, which is easily taken up by the plants. So how this is the way how they are helping to uptake nitrogen. The second example in nitrogen solubilizing biofertilizer is azospirillum. Azospirillum is a nitrogen fixing biofertilizer. Nitrogen is the major nutrient for all the plant growth. Azospirillum lipoferum, it is the species which is useful for soil and root bacterium. They form associative symbiotic nitrogen fixing bacteria, and they are found into the soil around the plant roots and over the surface of the roots. It also produces growth promoting substances like indole acetic acid, some gibberellins, pantothenic acid, thiamine, and niacin. And it promotes the root proliferation and it improves the plant growth yield. It increases the rootlet density and root branching, resulting in increased uptake of minerals and waters. So this is the way azospirillum works. This azospirillum is suitable for different kinds of plants like millets, oil seeds, some of the fruits and vegetables, sugar cane. Over the sugar cane, azospirillum can be used on banana tree, then coconut tree, oil palm, cotton, chili, lime, coffee and tea. Then some of the rubber plants. There are some of the flowering species where azospirillum is suitable. So these are some of the examples where azospirillum is applied for nitrogen uptake. These are some of the example from each group. Like free living bacteria possesses Azotobacter, then Clostridium, Klebsiella, Nostac. These are the examples from free living group. In symbiotic association, Rhizobium is used, Anabaena is used, Azolla is used. In associative symbiotic, Azospirillum is the example. Second category is phosphorus solubilizing biofertilizers. In the field or in the soil, we can say the concentration of phosphorus is actually very high, but most of it is present into the unavailable form, which makes it the second most limiting plant nutrient after nitrogen. Nitrogen and phosphorus, these are the major nutrients required for the plant growth, and they can be called as a limiting plant nutrient. The phosphorus solubilizing bacteria, or they can be called as PSB. Example like are Bacillus and Pseudomonas. They can be called as PSB, phosphorus solubilizing bacteria. They can increase the phosphorus availability to plants by mobilizing it from unavailable form, which is actually present into the soil. So this is how the phosphate solubilizing or phosphate mobilizing bacteria works. These bacteria and certain soil fungi, in soil fungi, Penicillium and Aspergillus, these are the example, which brings about the dissolution of bound phosphate into the soil by secreting some of the organic acids which are characterized by lower pH into their vicinity. So these bacteria helps in solubilizing bound form of phosphate into the soil. These phosphobacteria is phosphorus is the major nutrient of the plant. It induces the vigorous growth and contributes the disease resistance into the plant. It also helps into the root formation and in the plant growth. The plant utilizes only 10 to 15% of phosphate, which is applied from the total 10 to 15% they utilizes. The rest is available into the unavailable form, or they cannot be easily taken up by the plants. So in this case, these bacteria helps. The balance of 85 to 90% remains into the insoluble form into the soil. The biopromoters has highly effective phosphate solubilizing bacteria that grows and secretes some of the organic acids and then dissolves the unavailable phosphate into the soluble form. And after that, the plants, if they can easily take up. It helps in improving the soil quality, or we can say the soil health. These are some of the examples into the bacteria and fungi. The bacteria are Bacillus megaterium v phosphaticum. This is the example. Then Bacillus subtilis, Bacillus circulans. These are some of the examples in bacteria. And in fungi, Penicillin and Aspergillus avamori. These are the famous examples in phosphorus solubilizing biofertilizers. The next category is potassium mobilizing biofertilizers. After nitrogen and phosphorus, there is a potassium, which is the major nutrient which helps in boosting the plant growth. Potash mobilizer is beneficial bacterium capable of mobilizing potassium in available form into the soil, into the root zones of the plants. It works well in the all types of soil. It doesn't require some of the particular kind of soil, whereas potassium and nitrogen can be applied in such a way. Use of such bacteria in powder form, they can increases the availability of more potash in usable form to the plants or host plant cell. They possess some of the benefits, like first is important, it mobilizes insoluble potash into the soil, whereas in easily available form for the plant or host plant cell. Potash mobilized is immediately available to the plants, which stimulates the flowering and fruiting. So potash is helpful to the plants in basically flowering and fruiting section. It improves the soil properties and soil fertility. It encourages the plumpness and succulence of the fruits and grains and increases the Brix level. Plumpness means the quality of having full rounded shape of the plants. And succulents means they are can also called as succulent plants. These are the plants with the parts having thick and fleshy, means thick. The leaves are very thick to sustain or to retain the water in arid climates or in the soil conditions. So they can use that retained water in drought conditions. So these are the succulents. And Brix level is the measuring term for measuring the sugar content, which is based on the light refraction index. So this is the Brix level. The next benefit of the potassium mobilizing, it increases the yield from 10 to 20% and also improves the quality of produce and thus fetches the good prices into the market. Some of the examples of these biofertilizers: arbuscular mycorrhiza, ectomycorrhiza, ericoid mycorrhiza, and orchid mycorrhiza. These are the major four groups available into the potash mobilizing biofertilizers. Then another important mineral is zinc, which is present in very low concentration into the earth atmosphere or soil, due to which it is extremely applied as the costlier soluble zinc sulfate to overcome its deficiency for the plant cell. However, some of the microbes such as Bacillus subtilis, Thiobacillus thioxidans, they can be utilized, and some of the Saccharomyces species, they can solubilize the insoluble cheaper form of the zinc compounds, for example zinc oxide, zinc carbonate, and zinc sulfide into the soil to the soluble form, so that plant can take up. So the example are Bacillus subtilis and Thiobacillus thioxidans. Then next category is vesicular arbuscular endomycorrhiza, or they can be called as a VAM. VAM, they plays the great role in including the plant growth. These are symbiotic entophytic soil fungi which colonizes the roots of approximately 80% of plants. So these VAM fungi produces hyphae. These are microscopic tubular in structure that colonizes actually the crop roots of the crop and grow out into the soil. The nutrients can be taken up by these hyphae or these tubular structure, and they can be carried back to the plant. This results into very efficient mobilization and uptake of fertilizer and other nutrients by the various plants. The VAM hyphae also helps in retaining the moisture around the root zones. So they are playing two ways in uptake of micronutrients from the soil, and they can retain the moisture capacity around the root zone. So there are two advantages of these VAM. These VAM can increases the resistance to some of the root-borne diseases or soil-borne pathogens and nematodes. They can also enhances the colonization of some of the beneficial soil microorganisms like Azotobacter, Azospirillum, Izoibium, and phosphate solubilizing bacteria around the root of the plant, and the synergistic effect causes the excellent plant growth. So thus VAM helps in beneficial microorganisms to grow around the plant root. These VAM are suitable for the plants like turmeric, banana, rubber, coffee, tea and pepper, cardamom, cocoa fruits, then tree seedlings, and some of the species. So this is how the VAM is can be applied. The next famous example is blue-green algae. Actually, these blue-green algae are autotrophic in nature, means they can build up their own food material from the inorganic material. These are the simple, and they can be found widely into the aquatic system or aquatic environment. Some of them are responsible for water blooms in stagnant water. They can adapt the extreme changes into the weather conditions, like they can be available, they can sustain the hot springs where the temperature of the water goes up to 85 degrees centigrade. So we are having more advantages with the blue green algae. Certain blue green algae live intimately with other organisms in symbiotic association. Some of these are associated with the fungi in forms of leeches. So the ability of the blue green algae to photosynthesize food, and they fixes the atmospheric nitrogen in symbiotic association into the paddy fields. So this is these are very useful algae where nitrogen fixing, they can be used for the nitrogen fixing, atmospheric nitrogen fixing. Second example is mycorrhiza. Mycorrhiza, this is the fungus. They are having more advantages, like they can infect the plant roots or they can uptake after having into the plant roots, they uptakes the sugar molecule which are produced from the plant. So what do they, plant makes the organic molecules, they can be called as sugars. They can be taken up by mycorrhiza or supplies to the fungus, and in turn or in return fungus supplies plant water and some of the nutrients from the soil. These nutrients are for example phosphorus, to the host plant cell. So this is the mutual give and take association between the mycorrhiza and the host plant cell. Uh, these fungi grow over the roots of the plants. In fact, seedlings that have the mycorrhizal fungi growing on their roots survive better after transplantation and they grow faster. The fungal symbiont gets shelter from shelter and food in terms of sugar which is produced by the plant cell. Thus fungal takes shelter from the host plant cell and food from the plant cell. In turn or in return, what they produce, what they give to the plant cell, they helps in uptake of phosphorus, or you can say nutrients. They helps in salinity and drought tolerance, maintenance of water balance, and overall increase in the plant growth and development. So this is the mutual give and take thing carried out by mycorrhiza and host plant cell. So we up till now we have seen different types and different categories of biofertilizers, uh, which are very famous into the market. Next, we can see the production of biofertilizers. The formulation of biofertilizers, basically there are four types. They can be available into the liquid formulation. They can be available into the carrier based formulation, then granular formulation and encapsulated formulation. Right now into the market, two formulations are available, liquid based and carrier based. So liquid based is phosphate and rhizo, it is the carrier based. So we will see in further section what is the carrier based biofertilizer, how they can be used, what are the carriers can be used, and what are the characteristics carrier should possess for the betterment of biofertilizers. Liquid based biofertilizers give the advantages like longer shelf life, easier to produce, temperature tolerant, high cell count, contamination free, and they are more effective. But the disadvantages is like high cost, high investment for the production unit is required. Whereas carrier based possesses, they are cheap in available, easier to produce, and less investment is required for production, because most of the carriers which are used for this kind of biofertilizers, they come from the agricultural waste, or we can say the animal waste. The disadvantages like they are having low shelf life, they are temperature sensitive, contamination prone, low cell count, and less effective, automation difficult. So these are some of the limitations which are carried by the carrier based biofertilizers. Then what is mean by carrier? Actually, the carrier is actually a medium that can carries the microorganisms in sufficient amount, or we can say in optimum amount, to the soil. So at present, biofertilizers are supplied as a carrier-based microbial inoculants which are added to the soil to improve the soil health and to improve the soil fertility. This is called as a medium that carries the microorganisms in sufficient quantity or in optimum quantity and keep them viable under specified conditions, because whenever we applied such kind of biofertilizer to the soil, there are more challenges carried for these micro inoculants to face, because there are other microorganism flora is also present into the soil. So the inoculum which we are applying to the roots, they have to sustain different weather conditions. They have to fight for the nutrients with the other microorganism which is already present into the soil. So these are some of the factors related to biofertilizers. They have to be easy to supply to the farmers. The use of ideal carrier material is necessary in the production of good quality biofertilizers. So there are certain criteria for the carrier, for choosing carrier for certain for different types of nutrients. Organic waste from the animal production and agricultural byproducts or byproducts from the agricultural and food processing industry, they can be utilized as a carrier for the biofertilizers. However, most of these organic waste meet the requirement of biofertilizer carriers. Um, Researchers like Bashan in 1998, they have divided these carriers categorized into the four. Later, as they are coming to the as the research grows over these carrier, there are two more categories later getting added into the four. So basically, soil based means peat, coal, clays, and inorganic soil. They can be used as a carrier. Then second, plant waste material. For example, compost, farmyard manure, soybean meal, soybean and peanut oil, wheat bran, press mud, which is a byproduct from the sugar industry, agricultural waste material, spent mushroom compost, and plant debris. This is called as press mud. The third category is inert materials like vermiculite, perlite, ground rock phosphate, calcium sulfate, polyacrylamide gels, and alginate beads. All these comes into the inert material section. The fourth category is plain lyophilized microbial cultures and oil-dried bacteria. They directly can be used as a biofertilizer. The fifth category is liquid carriers like broth and broth plus polyvinyl pyrrolidone, PVP. So they can be used as a carrier for the biofertilizers. And last category is capsule-based carriers. They can be pelleted spores and cells in capsules. So they can be used as a carrier. What are the properties or they can lead to the good carrier material for the seed inoculation? So basically the carrier should be non-toxic to the inoculant of the microbial strain. They should they should possess good moisture absorption capacity, easy to process and free of lump forming materials, easy to sterilize either by autoclaving or by gamma irradiation method. They should be inexpensive. They should have a good adhesion capacity to the seeds. They should have good pH buffering capacity and non-toxic to the plant or host cell plant. These properties only indicate the potential for a good carrier, while final selection of carrier must be based on microbial multiplication and survival during the storage, general methods of planting equipment used for the planting, and acceptable cost. Because what happens whenever microbial inoculation is applied over the carrier material, there are different steps while preparing the biofertilizer, and to final step, that is application of this biofertilizer to the actual plant. So between all these steps, the inoculum which is applied over the carrier material, that have to survive through all these stages. So these stages can be storage. Then there are different planting techniques. So these techniques, they have to survive. And then they have to survive the soil microflora. They have to compete with the soil microflora. So these are some of the factors which are affecting the inoculant after coating over the carrier based material. So for example, one of the researcher has carried out the example like wheat bran and sugarcane bagasse. They have used it as a carrier based material. The inoculant they have used is rhizobium or bradyrhizobium and rock phosphate solubilizing fungus like Aspergillus niger. So this is the strain they have used, and they have applied as a soil inoculant, and the number of co-cultured microorganisms was the highest with peat, followed by bran and sugarcane bagasse. So they have studied three types of carrier-based material: wheat, bran, sugarcane, and peat. So out of which the inoculant, they have not only applied the single inoculant, but they have co-cultured the microorganisms to get the maximum benefits. Then coming to the sterilization point, there are two ways available for sterilization of carrier material. Like first is autoclaving and second is gamma irradiation. But gamma irradiation is mostly famous because autoclaving, what they do while autoclaving, the physical and chemical properties of the carrier material, they can be changed. So most famous method is gamma irradiation, but in some of the cases autoclaving can be utilized. The sterilization of carrier material is essential to keep the high number of inoculant bacteria over the carrier material for long-term storage period. So to avoid the maximum contamination, uh, getting sterilized carrier is most important thing. The gamma irradiation is the most suitable way for the carrier sterilization because sterilization process makes almost no changes into the physical and chemical properties of the material. So gamma irradiation does not changes any of the properties of the material. So this is the most suitable method. In brief, what they do, carrier material is first packed into the polyethylene bag and then gamma irradiation waves passes through up to 50 kilogray. So after passing gamma irradiation, it has supposed to be the material has been sterilized. In autoclaving, the carrier material is packed in partially open thin walled polypropylene bags and they can be autoclaved for 60 minutes or 1 hour at 121 degrees centigrade. So this is the autoclaving method. These are in general 7 methods for production of microbial inoculant or biofertilizer. First is the isolation of microbes from any source like water, they can be soil and they can be air. So after isolation of microbes, second step is screening for specific characters. Like the microbial species is can be utilized for whether it can be utilized for phosphate or whether it can be utilized for nitrogen. The like screening can be carried out for getting specific characteristics of the microorganism. Then testing under the hygienic conditions. After testing, they can be transferred for the small scale trials to check their efficacy into the over the plants. So pot trials on the lab scale can be carried out in this section. After these small scale trials, the larger field trials can be carried out, and after the successful field trials, standardization studies, some of the certifications have to be done with the government to get it that biofertilizer into the market, and then finally commercial inoculum or biofertilizer come into the market. So these are the steps carried out. So they are divided into the 3 sections: culture selection and maintenance, first step. Second step is culture augmentation or mass multiplication or called as substrate preparation. And third is carrier sterilization. Carrier sterilization we have already seen. The culture selection and maintenance, for example, the pure mother cultures, they are getting maintained by some of the universities or agricultural universities like Indian Agricultural Research Institute called as IARI, and the Indian Council of Agricultural Research ICAR. Some of the regional biofertilizing labs, they maintains the pure mother culture of various strains which are useful for the biofertilizers. So these biofertilizers can be purchased from these different laboratories. After purchasing these mother culture, they are further subcultured and maintained purely for mass production by adopting different techniques. So in the picture, we can see how the mother culture is getting further subcultured for the mass production. Then in the preparation of media, the agro waste can be utilized, but before that pre-treatment has to be carried out. There are 4 types of pre-treatments to the agro waste can be carried out. physical, chemical, physico-chemical, and biological. Like in physical, milling, microwave extrusion, and ultrasonication can be utilized. Whereas in alkaline condition, hydrolysis, alkaline hydrolysis, acid hydrolysis, some of the ionic liquids can be used. Organosolvent processes, deep eutectic solvents, they can be utilized in chemical pretreatment. Whereas in biological, the enzymatic pretreatments can be done over the agro waste. After the selection of mother culture, the second step is subculturing or mass multiplication. In mass multiplication, the organic source is utilized because they provides protein, carbohydrates, and lipids for the growth of microbial flora. So it is carried out in two steps. At primary level, using the shakers in a flask, and in secondary stage, multiplication in large fermenters can be carried out. So these proteins, carbohydrates, and lipids, after hydrolysis, they gives amino acids, sugars, and long chain fatty acids, which are useful for the microbial growth. So similarly, an optimized composition for the growth media should be considered for the other cultures also. So media optimization can be carried out using the response surface methodology or RSM. These methods can be utilized for optimum media cultures for growth of the microorganisms. After the media is formulated and sterilized into the fermented, side by side it is inoculated into the shorter cultures, multiplied into the flask, and at definite ratio, usually 5% is utilized. So the broth is prepared. The bacteria growing medium is called as a broth, and it is continuously aerated by passing the sterilized air through the compressor. After 3 to 4 days of fermentation period, the broth will be ready for packaging, for packing over the carrier material. Side by side, while preparing the broth, side by side, the carrier material can be sterilized. The mass multiplication can be carried out in a large scale by 4 methods: cemented tank method, shallow metal troughs method, polyethylene line pit method, and field method. So these are the 4 methods available for the mass multiplication. As the broth is getting prepared side by side, the carrier sterilization can be carried out. We can see before that the agro waste which is utilized for carrier can be pre-treated, means they can be milled into the fine powder to increase the surface area for the inoculant. So the particle size can be 10 to 40 micrometer. There are 2 sterilization methods we have seen: autoclaving and gamma irradiation. Most suitable is gamma irradiation, but in some of the cases autoclaving method can be utilized. So this is the overall flow chart for the production of biofertilizers, like selection of mother culture, then preparation of slant. From the slant, the broth culture can be prepared. The broth can be transferred into the small flask, then into the larger bottles or large flasks. In the large scale preparation, large fermenters can be utilized for the large scale production, or they can be transferred into the smaller flask into the shakers as per the limited requirement. After that, the broth is blended into the sterilized carrier. While the broth is getting prepared, the carrier material is getting sterilized, and after the sterilization, the sterilized material is getting blended to the broth to get the coating of inoculant over the carrier surface. After the blending, the material which is prepared, that can be transferred into the polythene bags, and after that the curing carried out at 25°C, and after that it is transferred for the quality checking or quality analysis, and final stage is cold storage. At around 4°C, the biofertilizers can be stored. From the storage, they can be dispatched to the farmers as per the requirement. So this is the overall method for production of biofertilizers, from selection of mother culture to dispatch of the farmers. Till now, we have seen how the biofertilizers work. What are the types of biofertilizers? How they can be differentiated based on the nutrients. They can be different for different nutrients like major nutrients and micronutrients. But after preparation of biofertilizers, how they can be applied to the actual plant, or how the actual field trials can be carried out by using these biofertilizers. So there are three methods are widely acceptable for application of these biofertilizers to the actual farms. First is seed treatment. In this seed treatment, what they do, biofertilizers, they get mixed with 10% jaggery solution, and then the slurry, thus the slurry is produced. That slurry is then poured over the seeds. Then the first seeds are spread over the cemented floor, and the slurry is poured over the spread seeds. Then the coating of the biofertilizer, or the slurry of the biofertilizers can be coated over the seeds. Then thus coated seeds, they can be dried after that. And after the dried the treatment of this can be carried out over the overnight under the shade. Don't sun dried it. And after drying, they can be utilized uh, for sowing into the soil. So what is the quantity of the biofertilizer required in this method? 750 gram of biofertilizer is required to treat the legume seeds for 1 hectare area. So the seeds required to sow into the 1 hectare area, they required 750 grams of biofertilizers. The quantity is getting varying. The quantity is getting varied from nutrient to nutrient. The other essential criteria for carrier selection for the seed treatment. So, while coating the slurry over the seeds, there are many stages where the inoculant have to survive before actually reaching into the soil. So, survival of the inoculant bacteria on the seeds. The seeds are not always sown immediately after the seed coating with the inoculant bacteria. The bacteria have to survive over the seed surface against drying condition. So sun drying is avoided. Overnight drying under the shade is more preferable. Survival of the inoculant bacteria during the storage period. As the storage is under cold conditions, like 4 degrees centigrade temperature is utilized, the inoculant over the carrier material have to survive this storage condition. Then the survival of the inoculant bacteria into the soil. After being introduced into the soil, the inoculant bacteria have to compete with other microorganisms which is already present into the soil for nutrients and habitat. So, and also they have to survive against the grazing protozoa. So this is the survival of the inoculant after introducing into the soil. Such carrier materials that offer the available nutrients and or habitat micropores to the inoculant bacteria, which is more desirable. So the porous biomass material is more preferable for the carrier for producing biofertilizers. After first treatment is seed treatment. The next method is soil treatment. Actually, into the soil, these biofertilizers can be directly applied. So this method is mostly used for fruit crops, sugarcane, and other crops where localized application is needed. Means around only the roots they can be applied. So in this method, at the time of planting fruit trees, 20 gram of biofertilizers getting mixed with the compost, and it is then added to the ring of one sapling. In some cases, these biofertilizers can be broadcasted on overall soil, not just the particular area around the tree, but they can be applied overall the soil. But in that case, the required quantity of the biofertilizer is more, like 4 to 10 times more biofertilizer is required in that case. before broadcasting or before applying this such kind of biofertilizer directly into the soil, the inoculants should be incubated with the desired amount of well decomposed granulated like farmyard manure for 24 hours. So in combination with farmyard manure, when we apply biofertilizer, the growth of the plant has to be excellent as compared to just single application. So it is more preferable that the biofertilizer can be applied along with the manure. The third method is seedling root deep method. In as the name suggests, seedling root deep method. So this method is suitable for application of azotobacter. In that method, slurry is getting prepared into the water. So 50 liter of water is taken into the drum. 4 to 5 kg of azotobacter biofertilizer is getting added into the water, and thus slurry is getting prepared. The planting material required for 1 acre of land, actually the 4 to 5 kg of azotobacter quantity is required for the 1 hectare of land application. So the planting material or the roots of the planting material, they are getting dipped into this mixture. Similarly, after dipping into this mixture, these planting materials then can be sown into the soil. So similarly, if we are treating the potato, then the tubers, they are dipped into such kind of mixture and planting is done after drying the material into the shade. So what else than the potato? Tomato can be utilized in such method, rice, onion, cole crops and flowers. So the seedling root deep method is applicable for this kind of planting material. How could one get the good response from the biofertilizer applications? So to obtain the maximum effect of these biofertilizers, what are the criteria have to be considered in our mind before application? The biofertilizer product that must contain good effective strain in appropriate population and should be free from contaminating microorganisms. For that, the carrier material which we are applying, that should be sterilized properly to avoid the contamination of other microorganisms. So it helps in keeping the optimum population of desired microflora over the carrier material. So that condition have to be kept in mind. Select the right combination of biofertilizer and use before the expiry date. After getting into the market, there are proper expiry dates are available over the packets. So use it before the expiry date. Use suggested method of application and apply at appropriate time as per the information provided onto the label. For seed treatment, adequate adhesive should be used for better result. As why the adhesive is more important, because over the seeds we are coating our inoculant of biofertilizer over the surface of the seed. So the adhesive should be proper, that it should retain the microflora over the seeds. So it is important to have adequate adhesives. For problematic soils, use corrective methods like lime gypsum, pelleting or of seeds, or correction of soil pH by using gypsum and lime. So if the soil pH is not proper, then lime and gypsum can be utilized to correct the pH of the soil. One should ensure the supply of phosphorus and other nutrient is in the proper condition, so to get the maximum benefit from the biofertilizers. But after taking all the care, there are some of the reasons for not getting response from the proper application of these biofertilizers. We have taken it into the we have taken this biofertilizer from the market, then we have applied it into the farm before the expiry date, but still we are not getting the desired results. So what could be the reasons? So in account of quality of product, if use of ineffective strain, insufficient population of microorganisms, and high level of contaminants. So these are the three probable reasons in terms of quality of product can affect uh, for getting the desired result from that biofertilizer on account of inadequate storage facility. We have all know that because of the lack of good storage capacity and good storage facility, lot of food wastage is there already into our India. So because biofertilizers have to be stored under cold storage conditions, if they getting exposed to the high temperature, they can be get the microflora can be get destroyed. They may have been stored into the hostile conditions. So these, if we do not store the biofertilizer at proper given temperature conditions, then we cannot get the desired results from these. On account of usage, not used by recommended method in appropriate doses. We have seen already there are three types of methods for application of these biofertilizers, and these are suitable for different plants. So for different plants, if we do not use the proper application method, we cannot expect to get the good result from that. Then the poor quality of adhesives. If the quality of adhesive is poor, we are not getting the proper amount of microflora over the surface of the seeds. So it is important to have a good quality of adhesives. Then used with a strong dose of plant protection chemicals. If there are other chemicals which we have applied already over the soil, then it can harm to our desired microflora into the biofertilizer. So these are the factors on account of usage. Then next is on account of soil and environment. High soil temperature or low soil moisture, they can affect the microflora. Acidity or alkalinity into the soil. Poor availability of phosphorus and molybdenum. These are the nutrients required for the plant growth, these are the nutrients required for the bacteria over the in the biofertilizers. But if they are not available in proper amount into the soil, so the how biofertilizer work, so it should be available into the proper amount. The presence of high native population or presence of bacteriophages, they can hamper the growth of our biofertilizers or the microorganisms from the our biofertilizers. So these are the different factors they are affecting to get the probable to get the good response from the application of biofertilizers. What precautions one should take for using the biofertilizers? Means biofertilizers need to be stored first into the cool and dry place, away from direct sunlight and heat. Right combination of biofertilizers have to be used. As rhizobium is a crop specific, one should use it for specified crop only. So there are different kinds of biofertilizers available, but they are not applicable for all the crop plants. These biofertilizers are specific and they have to be mentioned over the packet of that biofertilizer. Other chemicals should not be mixed with the biofertilizers, we have seen, because these chemicals can hamper the growth of the our inoculant, or they can destroy that inoculum. Biofertilizers, they are the live products and therefore they require the good care into the storage facility. Both nitrogenous and phosphatic biofertilizers are to be used to get the best results. So combination of biofertilizers can be applied depending upon the crop, so they can give the best result in the growth and development of the plants. It is important to use biofertilizers along with the manures. When we apply only biofertilizers, as compared to this, there are research carried out when the biofertilizer is combined with the organic manure like farmyard manure, the results we have obtained, these are the best, or these are the good as compared to single application. What are the advantages of these biofertilizers? They form an important association with other soil microorganisms and helps in nutrient supply. So health of the soil is getting improved, the nourishment of the soil is getting improved. It fixes atmospheric nitrogen, It increases the availability or uptake of nutrients through solubilization or increased absorption. So these are the methods by which microorganisms helps the plant to take up the nutrients from the soil. It stimulates the plant growth through the hormonal or antibiotic action or by decomposing organic waste. So these are how they can improve or how they can help in improving the growth of the plant. They are available in cheap and hence they are cost effective in cultivation system. It improves the soil properties and sustaining the soil fertility lead to the soil enrichment. Thus, the health of the soil is getting improved. They are compatible with the long-term sustainability, build up the soil fertility for the long-term effect. They are, of course, eco-friendly and they do not have the major impact on the environment. They are cost effective, eco-friendly, and improves the crop yield by 20 to 30%. The chemical demand of the chemical fertilizers, they can be replaced by using biofertilizers almost 25 to 30%. So these are the more benefits available with the biofertilizers rather than the chemical fertilizers. We'll see the disadvantages of biofertilizers. As such, till now, there is a no harmful impact found out over the biofertilizer use into the field. But there are certain disadvantages with respect to plant is plant. They are there. Like we can say these are not actually disadvantages, but they are limitations. Means there are some constraints specific to the plants, like rhizobium species culture doesn't work well in high nitrate tolerant strains of soybean. The acceptability of biofertilizer has been rather low, chiefly because they do not produce quick and spectacular response. As the we have know that chemical fertilizers effect is more prominent or it is more quick as compared to the effect of biofertilizers. So it is the time being process. So they can be say we can say it is the limitation of biofertilizers. Application of biofertilizers requires the skill in production also and in the application also. They are difficult to store. As it's not actually a difficult to store if we have the proper storage system into the farming system. Just look at the case study. One of the group of researchers, they have produced phosphate biofertilizer using Aspergillus niger strain. So how they have used, phosphate accumulates into the soil. Most of the soil is rich in phosphate, but the phosphate is into the insoluble form. So this biofertilizer helps to make it into the soluble form. So these are phosphate solubilizing microorganisms. Aspergillus niger 1107, they have been isolated, and they have identified it as an efficient phosphate solubilizing fungus. So after identification of this strain, they have found that this Aspergillus niger strain, it generates 689 mg of soluble phosphate out of total into the soil per liter of NBRIP broth or growth media after 10 days of culture. So this is the quantity available into the soluble form of the phosphorus. To produce an affordable biofertilizer using Aspergillus niger strain, the potential of widely available carrier materials for growth and maintenance of this strain were evaluated. Basically, this group of researchers, they have utilized four kind of carrier material, and over these four different kinds of carrier material, they have inoculated Aspergillus niger. For sterilization of this carrier material, they have used gamma irradiation and autoclaving. Means out of that, they have also investigated they have also reported that gamma irradiation is more better for Aspergillus niger strain than the autoclaving process. The carrier materials I have told that they have used four different carrier materials like peat, corn cob with 20% perlite, wheat husk with 20% perlite called as WHP, and composted cattle manure with 20% perlite. So these four carrier materials they have screened for the Aspergillus niger strain. In the first 5 to 6 months of storage in carrier materials which are sterilized by gamma irradiation, they have maintained the higher inoculum loads. So in this way they have carried out two-way study. The carrier material they have sterilized by gamma radiation also, and they have used autoclaving method also. But the after storage period, completion of storage period, they have found the maximum inoculum load over the carrier material, which is sterilized by autoclaving and not I'm sorry, they have used autoclaving and gamma irradiation, but in that way, autoclaving method they have found more suitable than the gamma irradiation. So this effect was not detectable after the 7th month of storage. Likewise, we have seen some of the autoclaving method, they have found that the chemical properties of this material, they have changed after autoclaving. So after 7 months of storage, the expiry date will be of 6 months for this kind of biofertilizers. When this biofertilizer was applied, they have utilized this biofertilizer for Chinese cabbage. When the lab scale experiments were carried out in a pot, the Chinese cabbage plants grown into the soil treated with peat and WHP, these two biofertilizers which are prepared by using peat and wheat husk perlite WHP. So these two carrier they have found which are giving best results rather than corn cobs and composted cattle manure in terms of phosphate utilization. So the peat and WHP based phosphate biofertilizer increases the availability of phosphate content into the soil. So this is one of the example where they have prepared phosphate biofertilizer by using Aspergillus niger strain. They have carried out two different studies. They have screened 4 types of carrier material, and also they have applied 2 ways of sterilization, autoclaving and gamma irradiation. Um, as we have seen, rather than applying single inoculant, mixed inoculant can be applied. Like for the mixed inoculant, the liquid inoculants having Azotobacter, Azospirillum and phosphate solubilizing bacteria. The mixed solution of these microinoculants can be prepared and they can be applied into the they can be applied as a biofertilizer over different crops. And they have found that the best results were obtained by the mixed culture rather than the single culture. After all these information with the biofertilizers, we will see some of the facts regarding the biopesticides. About 150,000 tons of pesticides are used in agriculture in India annually. Major pesticide is used as a chemical pesticide. The intense application of these chemical pesticides in agriculture is the major cause of serious concern, because crops are getting susceptible or crops are getting resistant to these pesticides. They are over the long-term use of these chemical pesticides, the crops are showing ineffectiveness with that chemical in pesticides. So the problem is especially serious because the development of resistance to pesticides in important pests and the presence of pesticide residues in agricultural and dairy products. As these pesticide residues, these chemical residues, they are getting depleted into the dairy products and agricultural products. Ultimately, they are coming into our food chain. So in humans, we are consuming such kind of chemicals. Growing pesticide resistance has meant that a larger portion of agricultural production is lost to the pest. It is therefore important that alternative and more environmental friendly method like biopesticides have to be applied by all the public sector, and they can be carried out by integrated pest management techniques, including the use of biopesticides. So these are the two more environmental friendly applications methods can be applied in agricultural sector. What are the advantages of biopesticides and biocontrol agents? These are purely organic, nature based. Like biopesticides can be derived from animals, they can be derived from plants and microorganisms. Some of the bacteria and viruses can be utilized for preparation of these biopesticides. They are less harmful than the chemical pesticides, or they can be means they can be getting depleted into the my soil, but they are not harmful to the humans. They are more target specific than the chemical pesticides. We have seen the chemicals also affect the friendly microflora into the soil, or they can kill the friendly insects which are actually useful for the farmers. So these are certain side effects of the chemical pesticides, but biopesticides are more target specifics and they're close relatives of the pest. In contrast, chemical pesticides often destroyed friendly insects, birds, and animals. They are often effective in small quantity, and also they decompose quickly and do not leave problematic residue into the soil. So they cannot enter into the food chain. We will see examples from each category, like into the bacteria. Biopesticides can be prepared into the bacteria from bacteria. So this is example of GMO, genetically modified crop. Bacillus thuringiensis bacteria produces the Bt toxin, which is toxic to the certain pest. So the DNA from Bacillus thuringiensis, which encodes Bt toxin, is getting that DNA is getting transferred into the plants. So now as the plant grows, they are having the DNA which produces that Bt toxin. So whenever the insects getting the pests are getting feed on that leaves of that plant, the plant produces Bt toxin. That Bt toxin getting entered into the insect, and then the insect is getting killed. So in this way, this biopesticide works. So in this image, we can see the Bacillus thuringiensis is the bacteria. The DNA from the DNA which encodes the Bt toxin, or the gene from Bt gene, is inserted into the crop. So whenever the crop grows, they possesses that gene which encodes Bt toxin. So whenever the insect feeds on that leaves, it they feed the Bt toxin into their stomach, and the pest ultimately gets died. So in this way, we can see here, when ingested by pest larva, Bt releases toxin which damages the mid-gut of the pest and eventually kills the pest. So in this way, the bacteria-derived biopesticide works. The second example is virus-based, or we can call it as a baculovirus. What they do, the baculovirus is getting spread over the foliage or the leaves of the plant. Then certain caterpillars, when consumes this virus is getting entered into the body of that caterpillar. So the protein which actually encodes the baculovirus DNA, it get dissolves, and the DNA enters into the stomach cells of the caterpillar. The stomach cells, that virus ruptures the stomach cells, and the caterpillar stops feeding on that leaf. So then it is infectious disease. So other caterpillars are getting also infected from one caterpillar, and the caterpillar dies within the days. So this is how baculovirus works as a biopesticide. They are target specific viruses which can infect and destroy a number of important plant pests. They are particularly effective against some of the Lepidopteris pest over the cotton, rice, and some of the vegetables. Their large scale production poses certain difficulties, so their use has been limited to small number of areas. They are not commercially available in India, but they are being produced on the small scale by various IPM or insecticide pest management community or the centers or the labs. They are produced by certain IPM centers in different areas where the problem is actually occurred, and that problem is getting solved by using baculovirus. So it is not actually commercially available. The third example is a plant-based material, which is neem. We have aware that the neem is having, or we can say it as a kadulimba. This is having a wide range of application as antibacterial property, antimicrobial property. We have known it is consumable by humans also. It is not at all toxic. So this is derived from the neem tree. This contains several chemicals including azadicatechin, which affects the reproductive and digestive process of a number of important pests. So how in this way they shows the antimicrobial property and anti-insecticidal property. The recent research carried out in India and abroad has led to the development of effective formulation of neem. So water-based formulation of neem can be prepared and they can be sprayed over the crops into the farms. So this they can be commercialized across the India, as the neem is non-toxic to the birds and mammals, and it is also non-carcinogenic. The demand is increasing for the neem-based biopesticides. Apart from neem, there are other trees available, of which different parts of that trees can be used as a biopesticide, like East Indian walnut. So the seeds and leaves and some of the bark and roots. So these are the part or the extract of the parts can be utilized as a biopesticides. Then cashew based tree, the oil of the shells can be utilized as a biopesticide. So these are the phenolic compounds or the chemical extract carried out from the cashew tree. So this is can be applied as a biopesticide. Then we have custard apple, then margosa, the flame of the forest. These are certain examples of another trees where they can be applied into the biopesticide preparation. Then another example is based on the fungi. The trichoderma is a fungicide effective against the soil-borne diseases such as root rot, and it is particularly relevant for the dryland crops such as groundnut, black gram, green gram, chickpea. These are susceptible to these diseases. So these are some of the examples of biofertilizers, biopesticides, which are derived from plant-based, insect-based, microorganism-based, virus-based. Uh, uh, so these are different kinds of biopesticides available right now into the market in terms of biopesticides. So some of they can be rely on genetic modification techniques to apply over them. So this is the general concept of biopesticides, how they can be produced and how they are how they works over the plant to protect the plant from insects and other microorganisms. Then there is another example is insect based biopesticide or trichogramma. What trichogramma do? These are egg parasites. So what insect do? They lay their eggs into the they lie their eggs in various lepidopteran pest, means another pest. So they lie their eggs with that pest legs. So after hatching the trichogramma larva, they feed on the host egg. So in this way they destroys the eggs of the pest. So in this way the trichogramma works. Trichogramma is particularly effective against the lepidopteran pest like the sugarcane, pink bollworm and sooted bollworms in cotton and stem borers in rice. They are also used against certain vegetables and fruit paste. These they are is one of the most popular biocontrol agent into the India, mainly because it kills the pest in egg stage only. because these are the egg parasite. So whenever the eggs of the trichogramma insect hatches, they feed on the eggs of the pest eggs. So this is how they destroys the pest at the egg level, at ensuring the parasite is destroyed before any damage is done to the crop. So this is the insect based biocontrol agent. So in conclusion, I want to actually say with respect to biofertilizers, we have seen different figures and different facts carried out by the Indian government efforts. They are investing a huge amount into the agricultural sector and the use of biofertilizers. Various studies they have found that little acceptance among the farmers is available, as the farmers are less knowledgeable how to use these biofertilizers, how to apply these biofertilizers in farming section, what are the benefits over the chemical biofertilizers. So this awareness have to be carried out by the government amongst the farmers. Not only the awareness, they have to guide and they have to proper give the training to the farmers with respect to application of biofertilizers also, and with respect to biopesticides also. The present policies of providing grants and low interest loans to biofertilizer production should be abolished. This has resulted into the setting up the large number of inefficient plants which cannot produce the good quality of biofertilizers. So because of the lack of policies, the production capacity is very low in India as compared to the demand. The policy of marketing biofertilizers at very low prices should also be stopped, because as these prices are too low to attract the adequate investment in modern manufacturing facilities. The storage and application of biofertilizers requires special facilities and special skills which most producers, shopkeepers and farmers do not possess. So it is important that greater R&D should be carried out to focus on developing biofertilizers which are easy to store and easy to apply over the farmings. More R&D has to be identified to more suitable strains and to develop better production technology and quality control methods, because as such till now the availability of different kinds of strains are very specific, means these strain have to be applied for that kind of nutrients. So more R&D has to be carried out to find out more strains which gives the better production as compared to the available or existing technology. The present government policy for promoting biofertilizers without ensuring the good quality and performance has actually harmed their causes, creating the widespread feeling amongst the farmers and extension workers, as the poor quality of biofertilizers, what actually farmers feels that it is not giving the good result as compared to chemical fertilizer. So this is the way how government has to put their attention in producing more quality of the biofertilizers. It will be better if the production and promotion of biofertilizer is suspended until the biofertilizer of the improved quality can be made available into the marketplace. With respect to biopesticide, focus on sustainable agriculture by promoting disease and pest resistant and especially traditional varieties, judicious intercropping method and reduced crop intensity. So these are the more sustainable agricultural methods that have to be focused. As I have told, improvement in the intensity of training for integrated pest management have to be carried out. And what is the focus? The focus should be quality training and not the number of farmers they have trained. What the government is doing, they are just showing the figures that much of farmers we have trained. But as the number is increasing, what is the quality of the training? So that have to be this is the thing where the more attention has to be carried out by the government. The training should be followed by regular contact with the trained farmers for providing continuous support in terms of money, in terms of certain policies, by giving seeds to the farmers and by providing fertilizers. So that the in terms of that four category, the government has to give the support to the farmers. The promotion of use of biopesticide by state agricultural departments and IPM workers have to be carried out. So this is the conclusion I want to carry out with respect to biofertilizers and biopesticides. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for conducting such a wonderful session. May I request all the attendees, in case if you have any queries, you can unmute yourself and talk to our speaker directly. If there are any queries at all, you can unmute yourself and ask our honorable resource person directly, or you can also type in the query in the chat box. Ma'am,
Thank you,
sometimes
sir.
it takes them a while to type in the message in the chat box. So, is it okay if we can we wait for a minute?
Yes, yes, sir. Absolutely. Hope the some of the concepts regarding the biopesticide and biofertilizer are cleared to you.
Well, I suppose, ma'am, that there are no further queries then,
Yes, sir.
because we don't see anything in the chat box as of now. If anyone
Ma'am,
wishes to,
excuse me, ma'am.
yes, go ahead.
Uh, yes, ma'am.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay, if we want to go for mass production of like these mycorrhizas and all,
Okay.
so what are the difficulties which we can face in that, and how we can overcome with those difficulties?
In mass production, there are different methods. Like we can go for the fermentation technology by using the larger fermentation tanks. So this is actually carried out in the
Ma'am,
company.
excuse me, ma'am, not for general, but only for mycorrhiza, ma'am.
Uh, Mycorrhiza.
Yeah,
Uh,
amphangites.
Actually, I need to get into the attention for the mycorrhiza because I haven't studied the mycorrhiza. We have grown for the other microorganisms like
Okay.
rhizobium.
Acha, okay. So your work is not on these, including these
Yes,
mycorrhizas.
yes, 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 yes.
Okay, okay, okay. Then
And
it's my
but it is actually a symbiotic association, like for mycorrhiza. So might be the photosynthesis, and at that plant takes the molecules like sugars by photosynthesis. So we have to more take like we have to give the attention to the sunlight while growing the mycorrhiza.
but mycorrhiza, ma'am, it's like in the soil.
Yeah, it's in the soil, but while multiplication, we have to give some attention.
Okay, maybe. Okay, okay, ma'am.
Okay, okay, ma'am.
If anybody else has any queries, you can unmute and you can ask.
Ma'am, one more question. Like you work on rhizobium.
Yeah. Okay, ma'am.
So, ma'am, has rhizobium been used for rice?
Yes, rice in rice paddies they can be applied.
Like in what way they will be applied? They need a symbiotic association. So how that is made?
In the rice paddies for the symbiotic association, uh, ma'am, actually, I will get back to you regarding this question.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. So, on behalf of Ballarpur Institute of Technology and on behalf of organizing committee of the short-term training program, I thank you very much for conducting such a wonderful session and an in-depth session, and hope to see you furthermore in the coming sessions as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes. And now for all the attending members, we will be sharing a link on the WhatsApp group to submit the feedback of this session, and you're all requested to please fill in the feedback before 11 p.m. tonight, after which the link will automatically stop accepting responses. So you're all requested to please fill in the feedback. We hereby declare that today's session is concluded here, and see you all tomorrow at 11:45 a.m. The schedule for tomorrow and day after, for tomorrow's session and day after tomorrow's session will also be shared shortly on the WhatsApp group. The session will start tomorrow at 11:45 a.m. and it will end at 4:30 p.m. and day after tomorrow also the timings will be same. You are all requested to please to please log in by 11:30 a.m. and join us by 11:30 a.m. so that we can start the session at sharp 11:45 a.m. In case of any
Excuse me,
doubts or
sir.
difficulties, yes, ma'am.
Actually, Neelam ma'am, I want to tell you that rhizobium is not used for the rice paddies. Azolla anabina is used into the rice paddies in endosymbiotic association for nitrogen fixing.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was saying that all the attending members that the link which is shared to join the meeting is valid only for one particular day. So the link that was shared today was valid for today, and for tomorrow another link will be shared every day. The link for that particular day will be shared in the morning. So tomorrow morning we will share another link for you to